Well, very good morning, everybody, for Tuesday, the 17th of May. Low pressure sits out in the Atlantic, and as we're to the west of it, we're now drawing up a continental airflow over the UK, which is going to bring with it probably some of the top temperatures of the year so far. However, this front that you can see straddling the Irish Sea currently is going to continue with its eastbound track across England today, which by the end of the day will bring with it some heavy rain and potentially some thunderstorms. If we go through into tomorrow, still keeping with that continental airflow, so it will still remain fairly warm and muggy before maybe something slightly better towards the end of the week. But yes, for today, an increasing southeasterly wind with those approaching fronts. Those winds are going to be a little bit stronger than the seasonal average, looking probably around 25 knots from sort of anywhere in respect to southeast, maybe even a little bit more southeast than that at times. And the satellite picture of the UK currently shows a fairly bright start, and certainly up until sort of early afternoon is the best part of the day. You can see the sort of front, which is stuck out in the Irish Sea at the moment, which will be making its way eastwards. We'll just see how active that is currently on rain alarm. And you can see it will build throughout the day, but it is already fairly wet in that part of the world. As we look at the public forecast for today, you can see that bright start with that southeasterly wind picking up, maybe even becoming a little more southeasterly at the surface, with 21, 22 degrees being our top temperature today, and yeah, reasonable visibility as the day goes on. No real significant weather till probably around 5 o'clock when we'll start seeing the effects of this front coming through, which may be a little bit interesting to say the least. Across broadly in the UK, we might see temperatures of 25 degrees. It's fairly warm on the continent too, so we're certainly warm for this time of year. However, the dew point figure still is fairly high at 14 to 15 degrees, making it feel fairly muggy. David's forecast talks about the southerly wind and the fact that, yeah, it'll be blue to 3,000 feet or so, but yeah, it doesn't get much better than that. The air is being drawn off the sea and the approaching front, but yeah, the wind is going to pick up quite considerably, which makes getting back into Lasham quite tricky, especially if it becomes unsoarable. Currently at Farnborough, we have that southeasterly wind, not particularly strong at the moment, no cloud detected, but in their TAF, they're showing it going up to 14 knots later in the day, probably slightly more than that. Looking at the site forecast for today, reasonable conditions till lunch if you can stay upwind up to around 4,000 feet, sort of 2.5 knot thermals, but slowly petering out as the day goes on, really. And yes, 22 and a bit degrees being the top temperature today. You can see by towards the end of the day we're getting towards 17 knots, so we're fairly windy. Just look a bit more broadly. That's potential flight distance for today. So unfortunately, the old Lasham saying, wind from the south beer to the mouth, is very much in place today. But if we look at, let's look at 11 o'clock, you can see that we are getting blue to about 3.5, maybe 4,000 feet by lunchtime. And then by sort of 2-3 o'clock, the air becomes stable and unusable. Out into Oxfordshire, it's actually looking quite nice, and up into towards Husbos, blue to shallow Q up to 5,000 feet or so. Airspace wise, not particularly too much. Danger areas active in the channel. 24 is a danger area heavily active, but that's at night, so don't need to worry about that. But the danger areas across the Salisbury Plain are active today. And 38 is aerobatics at Sywell, which is between 16:15 and 16:35 today, but the place is generally quite active currently. A couple of Navajo movements around 4 and 5 o'clock this evening. Shouldn't really be too much of a factor. But operationally, I think we're going to have to go on 1-6, looking at the direction of wind today. I'm not sure how many private owners are going to look to go north and enjoy the conditions. We'll see how we can mix and match with that. But 1-6, at least for a reasonable part of the day, looks like probably the best option, given that southerly wind. Okay, I'll see you on the airfield shortly. Bye for now.